Volantis, Staples' household. Wirt Staples sat before the brand-new monitor Wham had convinced them to buy. It was only twice the size of their old monitor, hence why they relented in the end. It wasn't the only thing new around his home either. Everyone got data pads. He was able to afford to make the few replacements that 24 makeshift repairs were simply not able to keep them together anymore. New curtains hung from their windows. Winona, his wife, got new kitchen appliances. A second-hand but well-maintained sofa rested in their living room, a soft new bed that helped with her back pains, and several tools that needed replacement in his garage workshop. His wife, bless her heart and thoughtfulness, had all but drilled into their minds that the absurdly vast amount of credits their oldest son had sent them was to remain safely locked away in his account. She only allowed interior and necessary things to be bought or replaced, and outright forbade them from even thinking about buying new clothes, footwear, or anything non-essential. As much as she wanted to shout to everyone who would listen that her firstborn son had become a noble, she knew better than to draw unnecessary attention to themselves. He recalled how he had to plead with her to buy all the medicine and treatments she needed to treat her condition, and he only won because Wyatt specifically sent them the money to treat her. Just as he was going to pick the controller up, the door clicked and then opened to reveal his beloved wife coming in wearing a long dress, a white blouse, and a large hat to protect her from the rays of Vatis, their star. A large, heavy-looking bag dangled from her hands. He stood up and walked to meet his wife, sharing a smile once they were mere inches apart and then closing to unite their lips in a kiss. It only lasted a few seconds before they broke apart and his wife let out a tired sigh. "Long day?" Wirt asked as he turned back, facing the living room and taking his wife's bag from her hands. "Not really," Winona replied, following her husband slowly. "The medicine works, and my back didn't hurt at all." She paused for a moment, turning to the monitor's screen only to sigh a moment later. "Wyatt should be storing his credits for his future." "Dear, we've barely made a dent in what he sent us, and he said he had more. He could be lying, of course. You can't tell when that boy is lying or telling you the truth, but I don't think he'd lie about that," Wirt replied, setting the bag on the floor next to the sofa before turning to help his wife sit down. Once she was seated, he joined her side, retaking his claimed spot. "Now why don't you tell me what got you so flustered?" "Everything, Wirt," Winona replied, leaning back. "Our son is out there risking his life for what? So that blue bloods can keep their asses firmly planted on cushy thrones? Our son, Winona, is out there fighting for the prince and the principality. He's out there protecting us and doing his darndest to prevent a civil war from happening," Wirt replied, softly caressing his wife's hands. Winona nodded slowly. "At least I can rest easy knowing that this mess is a succession dispute." "Everyone is so scared, Wirt. Everyone that came for this week's lesson only talked about the price increase on many goods, how the orbital traffic diminished, and some even talked about pirate assaults happening across neighboring systems. Wirt, I'm scared. For us, for our sons, for Wyatt. I haven't heard from my sister. And I haven't heard anything from my siblings either," Wirt mumbled. "I hope they're okay. Working on water harvesting stations and asteroid mining outposts isn't safe if there are pirates lurking about." "At least my sister is on a planet," Winona added. "What about you? I thought you were going to be out until tomorrow." "Work was canceled when I arrived," Wirt replied, frowning. "The shipment didn't come, and we finished all the backlog projects we had scheduled. Only the maintenance guys were called in," he chuckled. "Gives me more time to tinker around and fix stuff. I actually finished fixing Sikaro's fridge before you arrived." Winona leaned in, placing a quick kiss on her husband's left cheek. "And your idea of relaxing was watching the ceremony procession again?" "Can you blame me?" Wirt replied with a snort. "Our son, our Wyatt, is there, standing tall and proud, holding a banner like a true nobleman, and he's doing it for a princess of the principality," he exclaimed with pride and pressed the play button on the controller. Soft, inspiring music filled the room as two distinct voices commented on the event animatedly. "Now that the prince has demonstrated that he is unharmed and ready to take the fight against the treacherous duke, here followers yet another member of the royal house Astor. And wouldn't you know it, it is the second princess herself, Princess Clara Astor," exclaimed a boisterous man. "Just as her brother, The prince, she walks with regal poise and power. Such splendor, such beauty. Can anyone doubt that we are witnessing an event that comes once in a lifetime? Noble houses and commoners alike should rejoice in the chance of basking in the glory radiating from the prince and his fetching sister, Princess Clara, added an excited woman. Doesn't she look utterly gorgeous in that dress? Nothing less could be expected for a member of the royal house Astor, replied the man. The banners and those given the immeasurable honor of carrying them must be bursting with joy at the chance to serve their royal majesties. The man exclaimed as Clara sat on her throne and the room erupted in chaos. A few seconds later, the audio shifted, favoring the music and drowning the chants and proclamations beneath it, just enough so that the announcers could be heard. It is not every day that so many grand and significant houses are gathered in one place outside the Council of Nobles, but among them, there seems to be a newcomer. The woman commented, and a camera zoomed in on Wyatt's banner, showcasing his heraldic shield. For a split second, the camera focused on Wyatt's expression, but it quickly passed him over in favor of capturing more angles from the three most prominent figures present. The video was easily rewind back a few seconds, pausing on the shot that showcased both Wyatt's serious expression and his heraldic shield. Both parents felt a surge of pride, relief, joy, and dread fill their hearts as intensely as the first time the mandatory transmission reached Volantis and was broadcast everywhere across the planet, from Fire to the most remote outposts and villages. To see their son not only alive and well, but chosen by royalty to be elevated to nobility, was the dream many a commoner wished to achieve more than anything, no matter the cost. However, they were not ignorant of the dangers such an unparalleled grace brought with it. Winona, in particular, thanks to her position as a semi-regular social worker who taught other younger commoner women how to knit and cook, was beholden to gossip and rumors that coursed through the great and vast capital city across all social strata. Tales about a newly elevated commoner family, or just an individual buying a knighthood only to lose it all in the coming months. How other lesser nobles hounded the newly arrived in order to take down the competition, or tricking them into one-sided deals that shackled them to one house or another were all too common. Then there were the dangerous tales of new nobles who allowed the power to corrupt their heads, thinking themselves all-powerful and invincible only for them to commit atrocities. Worse yet were not the tales that were mere gossip, but factual truth that didn't even involve being elevated to nobility. A scant positive change in one's fortune was enough to attract thieves and liars and scammers like starving Clixall to a freshly plotted land or slain prey, hoping to bleed out as many credits from a potential fool. After Wyatt's call and the vast amount of wealth he'd placed directly under them, Winona Staples was both thankful that her beloved son never stopped thinking about them, but also she feared for his life and well-being. She doubted that her son would let his newfound power get to his head, corrupting and intoxicating his mind and vision to see himself as something superior to those under him. She was equally sure, however, that her son would not be happy with his new position, especially with everything that position was bound to burden his shoulders. She wouldn't know any better. She was a commoner after all, but she knew enough to never want to involve herself in such dealings. What she feared were the dangers that came from the outside. Thieves came in many forms, be they opportunistic or beggars with sad tales about their lives. Charming women who would do their best to get a hold of her son and latch to him much like a parasite burrows into its host. A frightening amount of those stories she heard were either related to such people or, worse, within the family itself. Her family, aside from her sister, were not close by any means, and her husband's family was limited to that of his brother and sister. They had nephews and nieces, but had never met each other outside the odd picture here and there. So, at least she had nothing to worry about. They wouldn't know who he was even if they tried to remember him from his childhood pictures. As she stared into the screen, watching her soon stand so handsome, proud, strong, and elegant clad in black armor fit for nobles and bearing proudly his heraldic shield, she couldn't help but remember the countless nights in which her beloved son woke up screaming in pure terror, finding him under his bed or curled up against a corner, crying hot, searing tears of fear caused by the horrors he saw and lived through. How he clung to her and his father in sleepless nights, afraid to go to sleep. The days he spent without eating, how the boyish glint in his eyes was choked out, replaced by an unbridled fear to interact with anyone not close to him. Wyatt's childhood had been stolen, and what came back was a shadow of the rambunctious and open-eyed child that had done his best to earn a spot on that accursed trip. More than anything, what hurt the most was his isolation. There was never any eagerness in his voice again, no joy, no wonder. He never tried to make friends again, and he embraced his studies and duties, devoting himself to nothing else except the rare few moments in which he would smile during a party celebration or when he could immerse himself in activities that soothed him. Before the incident, he always complained about knitting, how it was something for girls to learn. After he returned, he never complained again, but knitting made him smile, and the fear in his eyes would be gone, at least for a few hours. The old Warlow taught him how to paint, which reignited his imagination. Moreover, after all the therapists and doctors that failed to help him, he helped himself, crawled out of the abyss he was in, and continued forth. He never told her so, but she was certain the only reason he sought to work at the nearby woodmill was because he needed it to some capacity. She'd seen him carving at a log or large hunk of wood with an almost twisted smirk on his lips, eyes focused on his work, and enjoying seeing dried plants, weeds, and wood burn. Her husband, ever the pacifist, always made sure to talk to their son and push him away from any ideas regarding revenge for his own safety. After his 12th birthday, his efforts and their support seemed to work, as she stopped seeing the bloodthirsty edge that sparkled in his eyes from that point onward, but his dream to be among the stars remained intact despite everything he went through. But her son was far from being like the boys around his age. He cared not for friendships or building any sort of romantic relationships. Where other boys his age would start thinking about dating or starting their working careers and plan on starting a family, he signed up for the academy as soon as he could to fulfill his dream. At the time, she lamented Wyatt's loneliness and isolation, almost to the point of turning himself into background noise. Now, she was thankful for it. Whilst she couldn't do anything to help protect her son due to sheer distance, she could protect their family as much as she could. No one had come to pay them a visit, not even their few close neighbors. They haven't seen Wyatt since he left, and while he hadn't changed much, he was no longer the teenager that left for the academy all those years ago. And if their neighbors hadn't recognized him, then it was unlikely that anyone working at the wood mill, his old teachers, classmates, and doctors would. As long as they kept their mouths shut and avoided drawing attention to themselves, no one would ever figure out that her firstborn had risen to such heights. "Isn't he just the most handsome man you've ever seen?" she asked, her voice breaking past her lips as she teared up a little, a happy, soft smile spreading across her cheeks the more she stared at her son. "He inherited my charming looks," boasted Wirt with a knowing smirk, eyes beaming with pride. Winona let out a hearty chuckle, wiping away the few tears that had formed. "Then I can rest easy. No noblewoman will be interested in his rustic appeal," she joked. "Bah," Wirt countered, waving his right hand around. "Other than the prince, there is no better suitor in that grand hall." "Wyatt would disagree with you, dear," Winona countered, squeezing her husband's hand gently. Wirt nodded. "That he would. But he wouldn't change our opinions. We're his parents. It's our job to see him as the best man there is, only matched by his brothers," he chuckled. "Wham has been focusing on his work a lot more lately, too. That kid is gifted. He'll make an excellent handyman and repairman that even the Orantes will call upon. I just know it. And our dear Westcall will become the greatest hunter on the planet. Who knows? Maybe he'll be invited to a parade or a dinner in the future once he gains his 20th feather." Winona joined in, imagining the potential great future their other two sons could reach. Suddenly, a series of knocks called to their door, breaking the couple's peaceful moment. Wirt stood up, placing a hand on his wife's shoulder before moving to the door. Peering through the peephole, he let out a surprised gasp before opening the door to reveal an elderly man holding a cane. "Warlow?" Wirt asked as he stepped aside, letting the older man walk into his house. "Sorry for the unexpected visit," the man excused himself, his voice gruff and ancient, revealing every year that he carried on his slightly arching back. "Winona," he greeted before looking around the house with interest. "The kids ain't home, right?" Plied as her husband closed the door and then moved to guide the old man to the one-person sofa chair. "Wham is out working, and Westcull is 4 sectors away dealing with a sudden clixel boom in that region." "Thank you, Wirt," Warlow said as he sat down, setting his cane aside and twisting his neck until it cracked. The old man sighed in relief before continuing. "New video screen?" he asked, pointing at the thing. It was only then that the couple realized the mistake they had made. Wyatt was still showcased on the screen, revealing the truth they had been guarding so much. Wirt almost lunged for the controller, but a throaty, raspy laugh from the old man with hair so pale it was almost silvery stopped them, his brown eyes sparkling with humor rarely found in the otherwise serious and sour-faced man. "No point in turning it off now. My eyes may be old, but I can see just fine. So, Wyatt's a blue blood now, eh?" Warlow stated, smiling. Winona and Wirt exchanged a long glance before Wirt joined his wife on the sofa once more. They held hands and nodded at the same time. "Yes, Wyatt's a noble now, Warlow." Winona leaned forth, frowning. "You're not going to judge our boy for it or hate him because of it now, are you? Because if that's the case, you should leave before I say things I rather not, Warlow." "Can't say I approve," the old man confessed with a shrug. "But who am I to judge him? I never kept secret that I hate the damn blue bloods. Gods and deities above know I spent too much time around them when I was part of the Royal Navy. Pricks and ass-kissers, always barking and growling like animals for the chance to hold just a little more power and influence over the rest, always seeking glorious combats and easy victories," he exclaimed angrily before spitting to accentuate his words. "Then, if you're not here to chastise him, why come at all?" Wirt asked, confused. "Just wanted to make sure I wasn't seeing things," Warlow replied, his expression turning somber. "Poor kid. I sure hope he knows what he's doing or that he's got someone giving him a hand. Otherwise, they're going to eat him alive. Damn blue bloods and their stupid games for power," he remarked with an angry scowl. "Lost plenty of buddies to nobles preening their feathers, trying to be like them freaky alien birds," he sighed tiredly. "So, what rank is he?" "He said he was a knight banneret and that the prince himself was the one that ennobled him," Winona replied, unable to suppress a jolt of pride from coursing through her body. Warlow choked and coughed a few times, eyes growing wide. Winona was quick to move and rushed to the kitchen, quickly returning with a glass of water. The old man drank slowly from the glass until half was gone. Setting it on the small desk next to him, he cleared his throat before managing to talk again. "Forget what I said. I approve of the rascal," Warlow said as Winona returned to her husband's side. "Well, as long as he doesn't start seeing others as toys or mere numbers, I won't say anything against the boy. Knight banneret. Do you know what that means?" "Before he told us? Very little. The only thing I knew about it was that it was a special sort of knighthood. But Westcull asked around and found that a knight banneret is tied to the will and protection of a strong house," Wirt replied, his voice serious yet trembling. "I think he's bound to the royal house Astor." "Most likely so," Warlow agreed, humming deeply for several seconds after. "I don't understand the rules and whatnot of a royal procession well, but I think Wyatt is serving under Princess Clara if carrying his banner to announce her arrival is anything to go by." "What does that mean, Warlow?" asked Winona, swallowing her sudden nervousness. Warlow shook his head. "I was part of the auxilia. I never got to bump around with nobles much other than when they pointed me where to go. But even I have to admit that some nobles aren't total pieces of crap. If Wyatt serves under nobles with a head on their shoulders, he may yet survive both this coup and life as a blue blood." "I hope that's the case, Warlow," said the nervous woman. "As proud and happy as I am for his newfound fortune in life, I'm his mother, and I worry. If he has to choose between duty and his life, I know what his choice will be, despite how much I wish for him to return home." Warlow nodded. "Aye, a good mother always worries for her children's safety. Wazim would be just like you in your place, Winona," Warlow said, his expression longing and melancholic. "I wasn't aware that you were married," Wirt commented, surprised. Warlow let out a hollow laugh. "No, not married. Had a fling with her during service. Knocked her up, I did, twice. Lost her to damn pirates, all thanks to inept blue bloods." He was silent for a long moment that seemed to stretch to encompass an eternity. "Never found any other that could touch my heart that way again. Wish I would have married her, though." "I'm sorry for your loss, Warlow," said Winona, not knowing what else to say. "Don't be. It was a long time ago." "Is my only regret, that is," Warlow replied, losing the sadness that was reflected in his eyes. "I still got my kids and grandchildren. Was a shit father, though, but I tried my best for them. I get to see them and their kids on calls and the odd visit, so I don't complain. I ain't truly alone." He paused for a moment. "But that boy has been alone, inside, for a long time. I got lost, too, after Wuzim died. Went to dark places. My kids pulled me out of the gutter when I should have been there for them. Your boy is lucky to have you." He paused again so he could smile at the couple. "Heh, I actually miss having the runt over for painting lessons. Shame he never got around making new friends, though." "About that," Wirt began, but stopped to glance at his wife, who, in turn, gave him a short nod. "Wyatt told us that he made a friend. It took him 14 years and a succession dispute for him to make an actual new friend. Maybe he isn't as alone as he was before." A warm, happy smile spread across the old veteran's wrinkled face. "Here's hoping the boy stands tall and proud to force those damn traitors to choke on their own bile." Slowly, and with some effort on his part, he stood up with the aid of his cane. "Now, you and the kids make sure to keep your lips tight about Wyatt, you hear? Mouth-breathing idiots will try to scour any information if his name ever gets out. With any luck, the Third Fleet burned his records, so don't go around wasting the credits he sent you, you hear?" The married couple stood up, accompanying the old man to the door. It was Wirt who stammered first. How did you know Wyatt sent you credits? Kid loves you even if he can't express it in other ways. I know he sent you something. How much? Not a bloody idea. But I ain't seeing you wincing, Winona. That means he sent enough to pay for your medicine and treatments, didn't he?" He chuckled when the woman blushed slightly in embarrassment. He let out a raspy laugh and walked toward the door. "No worries. No need to try and bribe me. I get enough with my service pension and what my kids can spare from time to time. I'll keep my mouth shut, too. So Wyatt better not become a useless, self-absorbed blue blood, or I'll break my cane over his thick skull if I have to and beat some sense back into him, you hear?" Winona smiled, losing her blush and moving past the old man, blocking his way out of her house. Gently, she grabbed his cane-wielding hand, forcing the man to look at her face. "Mr. Warlow, would you like to join us for dinner?" Warlow smiled. "As long as it ain't no damn La Choa in it, yes. Hate the buggers." Winona let go and moved aside. "I'll tell you all about my stories during service tonight." Following day, Balakura, diplomatic chambers. Wyatt stood next to Clara as she sat at one end of the surprisingly small and simple table. The wood was of outstanding quality, even if he didn't know what sort of trees grew on the planet, or if it had been imported from somewhere else. Across the table sat Felicity Centaur, looking as confident and calm as he'd seen her the day before. The table itself was circular, approximately 4 meters in diameter, with no intricate patterns or decorations to be found on its legs, surface, or sides, which contrasted with the heavily ornate chairs the Princess and Felicity Centaur, plus her 3 companions, were occupying. Another set of chairs remained empty, waiting for the arrival of Geenock Ferentis, head of his house, and 3 others who would join him. On Clara's other side stood Cynthia, solid and unmoving as a statue. Behind them, the Royal Marines stood in similar stances, whilst the Draymore envoys had 10 veteran Marines, judging by their equipment, guarding them. Since the moment both parties entered the room, they had remained silent, keeping a peaceful but tense air between them. Time lost all meaning as each minute felt as long as an era until, much to his relief, the doors opened to reveal Geenock Ferentis holding the hand of his lady wife, HFY Ferentis. Behind them, 2 younger men followed. He recognized Yolti Ferentis, their oldest son, but the second man was new to him. He was slightly shorter than Jolti and shared similar features, though his hair reached past his shoulders and sparkled in a multicolored spectrum each time the rays of the local star hit it. Around them, 24 guards escorted them until they sat down on the empty seats. There was no fanfare and no music, not even an announcer present at their moment of entry. Wyatt raised an eyebrow in surprise as another minute-long silence strangled the room. It ended when Geenock placed a metallic cylinder on the table and inhaled deeply. Today, marked as Unis 17, 4156 Standard Astorian Principality Calendar, and September 21st, 26702 Standard Terran Calendar, shall be noted to start cordial diplomatic talks with the envoys from His Lordship, Duke Cornelius Draymore of Camrim, and the envoys of His Most Beloved Majesty the Prince. Representing the former stands Viscountess Felicity Cintor. Upon hearing the introduction, the dark-haired woman stood up for a few moments, bowed her head at Geenock, and sat down. Representing the latter stands Princess Clara Astor. Much like Felicity before her, Clara stood up and repeated the same motions with elegant precision. I, Geenock Ferentis, head of House Ferentis, welcome you to this ancient table of debate. Let its simplicity humble your words and cool your humors. May that which is to be spoken be true and measured, for we all sit as equals around this most auspicious table. May those who break the peace this table command, and the written law that was written in blood by the great and mighty Julius Astor, know his wrath, and be forever marked as outcasts and duplicitous villains, unworthy of the very air they breathe. I solemnly swear to abide and honor the ancient tradition and subject myself to the will of the law, said Felicity and Clara at the same time, their voices ringing with sing-song splendor. Wyatt felt a jolt course through his body. Whatever he had witnessed happening was leagues above what he had witnessed on Woodshaft. There was no hesitation, no trembling, and no indications that Clara was anything but focused on the task at hand. His posture became firmer, the full weight of the situation more than apparent. I have heard your pledges, and they have been written down, Geenock announced. Let the negotiations begin. As tradition dictates, Lady Felicity shall be the first to speak.